Every 15 minutes, someone is maimed or killed by landmines. Over 100 million mines are buried around the world. At the present rate, it could take more than 100 years to find them all. Now, a revolutionary British mine detector is to be tested in one of Richard Branson's airships. It could save many lives and transform the dangerous business of seeking out mines. This is Kosovo. Nearly 2 years after the war ended here, the guns are silent. However, a daily battle is still taking a deadly toll. This man is about to risk his life. Gus Melin is a deminer. He is defusing a Serb blast mine.
It's on its side, which makes it very awkward. Move my relay stick back so I can excavate. Very awkward, this.
Blast mines are volatile. One false move could be fatal.
I have to be ever so careful. It's got a danger potential on a scale of 9 to 10 of 9.9.
Medics are on standby. 20 deminers have already blown themselves up doing this in Kosovo.
I'm not going to risk digging it out because it's a funny angle. I can't get underneath it. Around. Yeah.
Gus knows that the mine could be booby-trapped. Grenades are sometimes buried underneath.
Okay. I'm just going to pull it now.
Professional deminers must anticipate every trick to stay alive.
I always hate this bit. Just a little bit too much pressure. And now we're playing the guitar. Not too much pressure. Just easy. Okay. It's not going to come out.
Gus senses a trap.
We'll try once more. The fuses have been glued in.
This is what a blast mine can do to a child.
When we finally returned home, we started to clean up after the Serbs. I took a bucket of water to clean my room. On my way up the stairs, I stepped on a mine. I lost both of my legs. I wanted to be a doctor. How can I be a doctor now? I'm crippled.
Ibadeta's father found that the Serbs had used their home as a police station and booby-trapped it with blast mines as they left. His daughter was maimed by one hidden under steps to the home. His wife lost the sight of one eye in the same explosion.
I hate those kinds of people. Why did they leave a mine on my doorstep, for me or for someone else to die? I never met that person. I never did any harm to him. I was in my house, my village, my country. They came from Serbia or somewhere else to hurt us and make us cripples, to stop us enjoying life.
The United Nations estimates that the Serbs left more than 20,000 landmines in Kosovo of the sort that maimed Ibadeta.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There are still hundreds of deminers working to destroy the mines. Each mine has to be located individually. Existing methods are slow and painstaking. Highly trained dogs also play a key role.
When the dog finds the mine, he reacts on the TNT inside the mine, the explosive, and the dog sits. Daar. Daar. I tell him to stay, I mark the mine so that we can know the place of the mine, and then I call the dog out of a safe area that I've already been searched. Then I give him his reward.
Using these traditional methods, it could take more than 100 years to clear the world of landmines. This British airship could revolutionize the worldwide battle against landmines. Normally it carries advertising, but today it's leaving Germany for the Balkans with a more ambitious aim to detect landmines from the air. It will be fitted with an experimental radar system to do this. It's taking off from Friedrichshafen, the home of the first Zeppelin airship. Even for experienced crew chief Kelvin White, this is a big moment.
I've been to many parts of the world, Brazil, South Africa and Australia for Olympic Games and different things, but this is really something different.
The mine-hunting airship will be called Mineseeker. Its destination is Kosovo.
Well, my hopes are twofold. The first is the deployment in Kosovo and that we're successful. And of course the second is the longer-term aim of Mineseeker, to develop a radar which will make a significant difference to the work we're doing.
The radar will follow the Mineseeker to Kosovo later. The pilot, Mark Finney, once served in the British Navy's Fleet Air Arm. From what looks like a wheelchair, he operates the craft's small rear wings. The airship is from the Lightship Group, part of Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Empire. A guarantee of adventure, but not necessarily of success in the air.
Although my own record with balloons was pretty disastrous, when we first set out 10 years ago, people said it was impossible for a balloon to cross the Atlantic. And 10 years later, a balloon went around the world. The same team of people, actually, interestingly, who were trying to help us get a balloon around the world, have now committed themselves to something which they feel is far more worthwhile, and it is far more worthwhile, and that is seeing if they can actually come up with a device which will save lives. Now, they equally may fall flat on their face, and it equally may be a waste of money and a waste of time and a waste of effort. But it's certainly worth giving it a try.
First destination, a United Nations Landmines Conference in Geneva. The UN is supporting Mineseeker, but some in the international campaign against landmines are skeptical about its mission. This could be a chance to try to win them over.
The pilot's waving out of the window.
David Partridge hopes that the Mineseeker's appearance might at least focus delegates' attention on new ways of dealing with the world's landmine problem.
It's a gathering of everybody in mine action to exchange ideas and views. And I think if we can bring some energy to the debate about mine action and help improve the funding and the political will to do something about it, that's going to be a great achievement.
The airship is used to changing costume, and today it's being dressed in Mineseeker colours. UN delegates are introduced to the radar's creators, the British government's Defence Evaluation and Research Agency, DERA.
Those of you that don't know me, I'm Paul Bishop. I'm the project director from the DERA side, and we're largely responsible for providing the sensors for Mineseeker. The core to our future work is something called an ultra-wideband radar system. The radar in its prototype form consists of a box a bit like a fridge, about this big, that fits onto a mount that's usually on the front of the airship and usually there for the purpose of flying the cameras it flies for filming sporting events, etc.
The Mineseeker will be fitted with a prototype radar system originally developed for military purposes. DERA claims that the system is able to penetrate the ground and produce high-resolution images at the same time, identifying mines by their shapes above and below the ground. Flying over minefields at up to 100 kilometers per hour, the mineseeker will be able to work much faster than deminers prodding the earth. It could revolutionize humanitarian demining. Kosovo will be the test. Princess Diana played an important role in making the world take notice of the human cost of landmines. The British government signed the Ottawa Treaty banning the use and production of landmines shortly after her death in 1997. The campaign has waned noticeably since then, and the Mineseeker team is keen to recruit supporters to restore its profile. A high proportion of the 25,000 annual landmine victims are African. As the Mineseeker makes its way towards Kosovo, two of its directors arrive in Cape Town to try and recruit a patron as well known as the late Princess Diana.
The Mineseeker airship itself is en route to Kosovo as we speak. It should arrive in theatre by the end of September, and we'll be spending 2 months working with the demining groups in Kosovo.
So Richard, of course, is becoming a patron of this Mineseeker, and we were hoping that you'd accept the patronage as well, so that we can actually put your name on as a patron on our Mineseeker Foundation letterheading, because...
What does the boss say?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. No. Welcome to Mineseeker.
My wife and I have agreed to be patrons of this project. We are doing so because we appreciate the potential of this development, that it is going to save human lives.
Once we know the extent...
Nelson Mandela's wife, Graça Machel, is a prominent anti-landmine campaigner. In her country, Mozambique, mines are the bitter legacy of decades of civil war.
With Mineseeker in Mozambique, one, it's going to be absolutely precise. Second, we'll know where the landmines are in very short time. And then we can, both the government and the international community, concentrate on those areas where we know exactly where landmines are to demine. And it will save thousands actually of lives.
The Mineseeker and its crew are now poised for their epic journey from Switzerland to the Balkans war zone.
So this is the first part of the journey. I think Calvin will experience, or could experience, communication problems. We'll get to the end of the Annecy Valley at Schombury. Airships are a team effort, and without Calvin and the whole 15 guys on the ground, I can't fly. It's as simple as that. The weather is supposed to be good all day, so I'm hoping to do a long transit and break into the south of France. We can hope to get down there tomorrow, but ships have been marooned at both ends of the Rhone Valley waiting for the right weather. Going from A to B is never certain. We can never guarantee that we'll get to the destination, particularly so on a trip like this.
The Kosovo trials will cost $500,000. Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Group is contributing more than half of this sum. The remainder is provided by the Defence Evaluation and Research Agency. The airship is not flying to Kosovo by the most direct route. It can't cross the Alps, so it will fly south to avoid them. As a large potential target, it also has to avoid trouble spots in the Balkans. The total length of the journey will be nearly 3,000 kilometers. Pristina, the Kosovan capital, is still scarred by NATO's bombing strikes. But now the Serb army has gone, life for Kosovo Albanians is beginning to return to normal amongst the ruins of their capital. The United Nations now controls the province, and its presence dominates Pristina. Colonel John Flanagan heads one of the UN's most intensive demining efforts in history. The New Zealander will be in charge of the Mineseeker's deployment. He knows more about the problem of landmines and unexploded shells in Kosovo than almost anyone else. Today, Flanagan is on his way to visit a Serb minefield on the border with Albania.
This is a huge minefield. This is a well-laid, well-thought-out minefield. It's one of about 12 in this general vicinity. Obviously, this was a major defensive position that the Serbs occupied. There's something like 3,500 dangerous areas, of which 620 are the Serb minefields. With the combination of cluster strikes, known Serb minefields, the minefields laid by the police and the paramilitary forces, we basically had a smattering of mines across the province.
In front of Flanagan's HQ in Pristina, there is an exhibition of some of the thousands of landmines found so far. In the back garden, Flanagan's threat assessment officer, Steve Saunders, shows us his private collection. He has found many different types of mines in Kosovo, both ingenious and deadly.
Okay, the first anti-personnel mine you've got is a PMA-1. Lift off the lid and you've got 200 grams of explosive in there, and that's the area there where the fuse fits. Obviously this piece here crushes the fuse when it's trodden on. You close the lid, you place it on the ground or in the ground, someone comes along, presses it down, the fuse gets crushed, which sets off the actual 200 grams of explosive. That's the PMA-1, plastic mine. Okay, the next type of mine is the bounding mine. By bounding, what I mean is, there's a small charge in the base of the mine, which actually, once it's tripped or trodden on, will fire the mine out of the ground, and it goes up to about waist level. And then it will actually, the main charge will go off and detonate and send shrapnel out to 50 metres, killing anybody caught in that 50-metre radius instantly, and obviously wounding anybody up to about 100 metres.
NATO's unexploded ordnance, or UXO, is scattered throughout Kosovo and has proved an even greater problem than landmines. British and American cluster bomblets have killed as many civilians since the war ended as Serb landmines.
The purpose of cluster munitions is that a single bomb is dropped, then at a certain predetermined height, it will open up and a number of smaller bomblets will emerge. And you can see there's an attack on an aircraft on a runway here, and these are the smaller bomblets which are now exploding all the way around the aircraft.
I mean, when we destroy them, we try and put the explosive charge as close as possible without touching the CBU, trying not to disturb it in any possible way.
3, 2, 1, fire.
This crater was caused by an American cluster bomb that missed its target. 11-year-old Burim Yashari and his father have used it to water their cows since the war ended. What they didn't know was that the dozens of yellow cluster bomblets lying around were still dangerous.
I had to take my cow home as usual. I didn't see the bomb and I stepped on it.
Burim is lucky to be alive. Cluster bombs have killed 63 people since the war ended. Burim says that a mine awareness campaign failed to alert children to the danger.
We learned in school about landmines, but we weren't told about these yellow things with that metal bit on the end. We found lots of them, but we didn't have a clue what they were.
Burim's father has mixed feelings about the Allied bombing campaign which drove the Serb army out but maimed his son.
I can't blame NATO for bombing, but it's hard to see what happened to my son as an accident. NATO should have closed off the bombed areas sooner.
The Red Cross estimates that Burim will need at least 25 different prosthetic legs in his lifetime, if he can afford them. Victims like Burim could have been spared if NATO had been more open about where its bombs landed. John Flanagan is angered by the lack of information.
The information that was initially provided to us by NATO was very, very limited. It provided us with a single grid reference and a number of bombs that were dropped, not even the type of bombs. And we felt that having looked at these sites, it was very difficult for us to locate the actual strike area. It's a little bit like searching for a needle in a haystack.
15 months after the war, Steve Saunders is still finding unexploded NATO ordnance that the UN had not been told of.
Oh, look here, look, signs of symptoms. There's a spider.
This Serb mountain position had been destroyed by cluster bombs.
There's one there, look, on the surface, armed, ready to go. Okay, let's have a look at this two-man battle trench here then. Oh yeah, look, there's one embedded in the side there.
Now you imagine if you were a Serbian soldier, two of you in that trench, the plane flies over and that lands on your trench, you'd be shitting yourself, wouldn't you?
The Serb position was hit by 3 cluster bombs, each containing over 200 bomblets. Saunders believes that the airship has the potential to help his mine-seeking.
On the demining side, it's going to help a lot with location of the actual extent of minefields and cluster strike footprints, and it's going to help us to get to areas like this in the mountains, in forested areas where we haven't been able to get to before on foot or in the vehicle.
Pristina International Airport and the Mineseekers Advance Guard has arrived.
That we drove around. But if we had the mast here, we can just paste it across and also measure it on the map to confirm.
Yeah, I mean, I can paste this out exactly to a ship.
A number of times he's walked up down the length of an airship. It's probably pre-programmed.
Right here.
Is that an airship length?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
But is that the 200 box or the actual length of the airship?
Trying to find a space to land at the airport next to the Russian Army's base is proving to be a challenge.
It'll just about fit in there.
Yeah.
With armies from over 30 nations stationed in Kosovo, getting any agreement to stick is a diplomatic achievement in itself.
It's a long and complex process, not least because of all the various parties who are involved here, but essentially we've been making sure that we see everybody who can have a say in the operation and make sure that we're covering all of those angles.
The last port of call was to prove more difficult than expected. Could the Mineseeker land at the airport? The Russian army replied with an emphatic no. Queen Noor of Jordan is a long-standing anti-landmine crusader whose support could be influential for the project. While the team on the ground has hit problems in Kosovo, Mineseeker is trying to win her endorsement. David Partridge flew back from Kosovo to help brief the Queen.
At the moment, I'm offering my moral support and will watch very carefully the results of the coming trials in Kosovo. And I think we're all taking it step by step. It is something that I think at the moment we're all willing to succeed.
After flying for nearly 2 weeks, the Mineseeker has crossed the Adriatic Sea and is now in Greece, waiting to depart for the Balkans. But the airship's landing site in Kosovo is still to be confirmed. David Partridge thinks he has found another potential site to the north of Pristina. However, it's crucial that the airship crew approve it.
Are you comfortable so far with the terrain, Mark?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Is this just the worst part, or are we still in the mouth?
We're still in the mouth. It gets a little bit steeper as we go on.
Obviously, we've got to check out the landing site first. If we don't check it out, we're not coming.
The Battle Group HQ of the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment is an appropriate new location for the proposed landing site. Army engineers have built the strip at the camp outside Podievo. However, a nasty barbed wire fence concerns the crew. It could puncture the airship. Landing space is also limited.
Obviously this fence is too close. Yeah. If the ship needs to come off that way, we can't.
The fences are relatively easy. The big worry was this fixed structure. And what you're telling us is that
that's fine.
You can operate with the masting point where it is.
Yeah, but I'm going to land and take off something.
Oh yeah, no, understood.
Yeah.
Understood. But the hard structure that's been built is fine.
Perfect.
So all we need to worry about is the fences and
the ground
vegetation. Yeah.
I mean, what sort of distance? Yeah. I'd like to see that fence go all the way out to your limited military land. So another 150 metres that way. I'd like to see that one go another 150 metres. I'd like to see that one go as far as possible.
If you could remove that bush, that would be great. I know it sounds a bit...
The army has much work to do, but the soldiers are up for it. Kosovo is a largely Muslim province that still bristles with guns and small arms from the war. The message that the Mineseeker will come in peace is an important one to spread at Friday prayers. If people get the wrong idea, the airship would be an easy target. Finally, after flying for 2 weeks and nearly 3,000 kilometers, the crew catch their first sight of the war-ravaged province as they fly the Mineseeker through the mountainous border with Macedonia. The Army engineers are still working hard to clear a landing area as the airship appears over the hills. Kelvin's ground crew has yet to arrive, so Mark cannot land the airship. After the ship has circled the British base for 20 minutes, Kelvin and the team arrive with David Partridge to erect a mast and prepare for touchdown.
Excellent.
Nobody has ever seen an airship in Kosovo. Locals are naturally curious.
The airship is coming here to survey the land for unexploded ordnance and for landmines.
It's a terrific moment, really. I mean, for the wheel to touch down in Kosovo for the first time, the airship to get here after quite a long journey across Europe, not without its problems. It's been quite fraught, and the preparation here as well. It's just wonderful seeing everything starting to come together.
Very good landing. The wind was in the right direction for us with the configuration of the ground we have here, so everything was perfect. We couldn't have planned it better.
I'm really happy with John, our two pilots.
Nice, sir.
Nice, very nice, mate. Good trip.
Very good trip, yeah.
But there is a snag. The base is on a high plateau, over 2,000 feet above sea level, which could have an impact on Mineseeker's performance. Two days later, UN demining chief John Flanagan hurries to the British base for the Mineseeker's press call.
If we don't get a solution which works relatively quickly, we're going to continue having casualties occurring in these countries, and that's really just not acceptable. If we can show the radar system works, it's going to have tremendous benefit for mine clearance operations throughout the world. And if the Mineseeker can be shown we're able to get onto target very quickly with the radar, it's going to greatly speed things up.
Good media coverage is essential for the project. If the radar trials are successful, £10 million will be needed to build a fleet of Mineseekers, each equipped with its own radar. Mike Kendrick has arrived from England to orchestrate the press day.
Okay, if you can come along the way you're coming south of the mast and then do a sort of an upshift as you get to the edge of the photographers here.
I think it's excellent. I think it's going to really tremendous potential. I think, especially under conditions like this, if the weather holds and we can get a lot of flying time in it, I think we can cover a lot of ground quite quickly.
Mike Kendrick moves from interview to interview.
Yes, but by the middle of November, we'll know exactly what we've got. Our plan is to attract commercial funds, and an airship's very good at attracting commercial sponsorship. That's the plan, to actually go out to the larger businesses who've got humanitarian funds and say, hey, it's not just a philanthropic gesture, but we'll give you something back in publicity terms. So we get the money to help the demining, the sponsor gets the publicity, and everybody wins because we save lives at the same time.
What Kendrick didn't anticipate was that on the same day, Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic was being removed from power. Mineseeker's media launch got little coverage.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks,
okay,
Mike.
last piece.
Back at Derra in the UK, the radar is being packed by Chris Thornhill. He is one of the brains behind the project. This is the first time experimental military technology has been released for a humanitarian cause. However, it's on a temporary loan. By the time it gets to Kosovo, Thornhill will only have 3 days to test it.
This is the largest container that we've got, and it contains the antenna assembly which goes on the front of the gondola of the airship. It's an absolutely vital piece of equipment. We have very few spares for this. It's quite a nerve-wracking moment for me. I'll be very relieved to see it, hopefully in one piece, when it gets in Kosovo.
Before the crucial radar arrives in Kosovo, the airship and its crew face their first test. A high-powered camera has been fitted to the mineseeker. Steve Saunders has had a crash course in camera work. He will be able to zoom in on visible targets such as cluster strikes and identify terrain where mines are likely to be. Saunders will guide the airship over its first minefields.
By taking a big aerial photograph of the whole forest, you can actually see tracks and paths going in from outside, from the air, that the actual demining companies can't see standing looking basically at the edge of a wood.
Below them, a British tracker is at work. Tony Thompson of the demining contractor DSL is an expert reader of mine signs and symptoms.
There's no SERB record of this particular area. We just have our own survey reports. If you look around you, there's certain indications the area's been mined. There's bones, to the right here there's a dead cow. As we go along here, we obviously know that the cow's been killed by a mine. Military-style boot that's obviously been, this poor soldier stood on a mine. I'm pretty sure that, as you can see from the vegetation down here, that without aerial photography we would never ever find out where these paths lead to. So certainly, yeah, it's of great use to us, very beneficial. These mines are very common in Kosovo, especially on the paths in the forests. It's what's classed as a fragmentation mine, PMR2 alpha, contains 100 grams of explosives and has a lethal radius of about 25 meters. Cut into small segments. Basically, when the mine is activated, these segments obviously separate into a 360-degree arc and will kill within 25 meters and extremely hazardous to about 100.
To show the killing power of a fragmentation mine, Thompson and fellow deminer Gus Mellin detonate one.
This here is the stake itself. You can see that it's completely disintegrated. And looking at the spread of where the fragmentation went, obviously a lot of fragmentation went into the ground. We go over to here to one of the sheets of tin that we put up. And here you can see the entry holes of, in fact there's a piece of fragmentation there still stuck in. Holes all around this sheet.
After Steve Saunders has finished his aerial survey of DSL's minefields, he sends the pictures to Tony Thompson's team for analysis.
Yes. Yeah. That's where the guy, that local guy, says that the path comes from that house over there. Yeah, that's the big left back path that goes around.
I think they're very helpful. These kind of photographs will help us to determine where the paths go, whether they're well-worn paths. So yeah, it's very beneficial.
Such pictures, however, will not by themselves revolutionize demining.
It is a useful tool, a very useful tool, but you've still got the guys on the ground that are going to have to clear up to those mines as well.
Bravery and skill will remain the essential components, as Gus himself demonstrates in tackling a fragmentation mine.
He's prodding around the stake to see if there's anything else that's been placed there to catch the deminer out. You can see the tripwire there just coming onto from the mine going down to the right hand side of the shot. Now the deminer's placing a piece of wire in the pin to secure the pin from coming out.
Secure the pin if I can and cut the tripwire.
Very steady hands there, Gus. The tripwire is now secure. There's nothing now that can pull the tripwire or pull the pin out. The actual short piece of wire is gently wrapped around the detonator. The actual detonator comes in two parts. See, now he's unscrewing it. He's taking the top section out.
Let's come off first. So that's the detonator out.
So now that basically the mine is neutralised. However, it's still classed as unsafe. there is another procedure to do, and that's pulling the mine remotely out of the ground. The reason for doing this is that it's a known booby trap to place grenades underneath the mine, attached to the stake, take the pin out. So even though you've neutralized the mine, you pull the stake out, and obviously a grenade without the pin in will detonate, and if the mine doesn't get you, the grenade will.
The mine seeker will never be able to defuse a mine, but if the radar works, it could dramatically reduce the time required to find the mines and get to this crucial moment. The mine seeker's real challenge is just about to begin. The radar has arrived, but there is only a short window to complete the trials. Kelvin White helps Chris Thornhill to fit the delicate radar to the airship. This is the first of only 3 days available for the trials, and the wind is getting up. Sir Richard Branson arrives in Kosovo, hoping to witness the start of the make-or-break radar trials. He is introduced to the team before taking the opportunity to inspect the mineseeker for the first time. However, the winds are so strong that Branson cannot fly in the airship. But there is still time for a photo opportunity.
What a lot of faff. That's all I got to say.
Some leading campaigners against the use of landmines are less than impressed by Sir Richard Branson's entry into the world of humanitarian demining.
The media gave wide coverage to the announcement in March that Sir Richard Branson's Lightship Group and the Defence Evaluation and Research Agency, DERA, were cooperating to develop a mine detection system which would float slung beneath a balloon above suspected mined areas. The use of even 1 penny of government funding for such a ludicrous venture would be little short of criminal.
Nobel Peace Prize winner Ray McGrath is a founding father of the anti-landmine campaign. Poignantly, he chose the annual Princess Diana Memorial Lecture to castigate Mineseeker and DERA's involvement in particular.
What's happening is they get together with Branson. They come up with this cockamamie idea that they're going to fly airships over minefields. Now, you've only got to think in terms of Angola, of Cambodia, of Afghanistan. Anybody who really thinks that you can fly an airship over minefields there just doesn't know the issues involved. They've never been to a minefield.
Branson, in a minefield, is becoming philosophical about his critics.
I've found in life that if I'm building a record company and, say, making £1 billion from doing so, or building an airline, or building a mobile phone company, I've never ever got criticised. If I ever put a little bit of that money into, into maybe trying to help with things like the Mineseeker or whatever, there are going to be people who will be cynical and will knock it. In America, that never happens. In Britain, it is a trait. We can't be sure that it's going to be, an enormous success, but we believe it will be. But unless you actually give these things a go, obviously, you've definitely failed.
Day 2 of the trials. A strong wind grounds the Mineseeker again, and the heavy radar is creating a new problem.
We always knew that weight was going to be an issue. We'd flown the radar before and knew that it's using most of the available lift of the airship. We're having a very mild autumn here in Kosovo, and that actually makes the airship less good at lifting weight as well.
The weight problem has been compounded by Podievo's altitude. The crew even has to strip the banners off to give the airship more lift.
We're quite high here. We're at 2,100 feet. And one of the characteristics of airship is that we lose our lift the higher we go. And so we've taken the banners off to give us a few extra pounds weight.
The ship is now so heavy that almost all the minefields in Kosovo are beyond its reach from Podievo. However, there is one that the Mineseeker can reach. It's a former Serb military base that's been converted into a UN mine training site. Partridge is delighted by the idea as it contains a wide range of mines.
With the test site so close, it really is a perfect opportunity to get to a minefield that contains all the mine types and all the UXO here in Kosovo.
Everything now depends on the weather. NATO forecasts a perfect day. A Balkan surprise the next morning. Unseasonal morning mist engulfs the mineseeker, producing a new threat to the radar trials. Everything now depends on the sun.
There are really two tasks that we're going to achieve today. The first is to fly against a series of test targets that we put on the ground to calibrate the radar. So we've got mine-like targets, but we've also got some rather sort of scientific spheres and pyramids and so forth, which are used to calibrate the radar. Immediately after that, we're going to a real minefield site with live targets, and we'll be able to work the radar as calibrated against those real targets.
The calibration tests will reveal if the radar has survived the journey from England.
That's the stake mine. The radar can't pick this up, we're in big trouble. It's a metal stake.
At last, the crucial trials can begin as the mineseeker's radar prepares to be airborne for the first time ever in a war zone. First, the calibration test. The airship flies over the targets that Partridge has laid just outside the base.
Yep, down there, I'll follow the fence along, and you'll see two yellow jackets at the top corners of that box away from...
This is a unique moment for Chris Thornhill. Finally, he can try out the groundbreaking military radar in the cause of humanitarian demining. The morning trials were successful, but the real test is coming up. The buried mines.
The mine types that are here are typical of all the mines that are in Kosovo, buried at various depths, so it's absolutely the perfect scientific testing site for us.
The UN site also contains buried NATO ordnance. Final air traffic control permission is necessary.
1025, report to leaving the zone.
1025 will report when leaving the area. 11 Zilla Papa, courtesy. Right, good, that's them out of the way.
And he's just turning now towards us. And what we're seeing is really the control and the stability of an airship. It's very, very stable, flying beautifully. A helicopter would have judder, it would be difficult to control, but the airship's just such a good platform for what we're doing.
With all obstacles now overcome, the mineseeker's radar can at last be put through its paces.
I never thought we'd see it here. Really didn't. It was a first to get an airship here. It was a first to be able to fly the optical system. It's the first time an airship's ever flown in a mined area. It's the first time we've used this platform for looking for landmines. I was delighted to see the airship arrive in Kosovo, but this for me is the most poignant moment, to actually see the ship flying over a live minefield with the radar working, crew on the ground. It's really the pinnacle, really, of being here.
John Flanagan will have to wait for the results of the radar tests, but the mineseeker's performance in Kosovo has impressed him.
We've spent a lot of time and effort surveying ground with a number of teams. In fact, we've had to go over ground time and time again to be sure of our facts. If we had the mineseeker from day one, I think we'd probably be close to wrapping this program up right now.
The data from the radar trials is already on its way to Britain for analysis.
Good now.
With the satisfaction of a job well done, the airship and its crew will return home by road. Mineseeker's mission has been part of the campaign to prevent tragedies like Ibadetta's happening again. Just as Mineseeker may bring renewed hope in the future, Ibadetta now has new hopes of her own.
I had to have therapy every day before the doctors could take the first measures for my prosthesis. I soon got used to my new legs. I even managed to take a few steps without crutches.
Now the girl who feared she would never walk again can even manage a little dancing. Around the world, hundreds of people every week are still being maimed, just like Ibadetta, or even killed. Will the Mineseeker's trials prove it could help to reduce this appalling suffering? Back at DERA's headquarters in Malvern, Chris Thornhill works through the long winter nights, putting the data from Mineseeker's Kosovo trials into powerful computers. The success of the mission is still in the balance. The world's demining community is understandably suspicious of anything that smacks of instant solutions. Nothing less than proof that the radar can see landmines under the ground will suffice. Mike Kendrick and David Partridge travel to Malvern to see the long-awaited results for themselves. They know their chances of raising the £10 million will depend on the outcome. Thornhill has been able to translate the images that the airship's radar found in Kosovo into identifiable shapes using 3D computer graphics.
This is a stake mine, and you can clearly see its response here. And notice how different it looks from the other targets.
Are these the ones that are often triggered with tripwires?
That's right.
So where's this from, Chris?
This is from the dog accreditation site.
So this is when we were watching you, when we were on the top of the tower?
That's right, when you were on top of the tower, yeah. We flew around the tower in between one of the
Brilliant.
Now this is a new result. You won't have seen anything like this before. This is a buried cluster bomb.
Good grief.
This is the first time that we've detected burieds.
What you can see here is that we can find buried targets, which is great.
How deep is this?
This is about 10 centimetres deep.
80. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
I can't go.
It's like giving someone X-ray vision, isn't it, really? I'm just so pleased. I mean, we've got something that we can take now to the sponsors and actually show them results.
Yes.
And better than we thought. I mean, much better.
Yes, well, we were
staggeringly so.
We thought these were excellent. We're really pleased.
25,000 people are being killed or maimed every year. We need to fix this problem in the shortest possible time, and that is where we will come in.
With the right support, the Mineseeker team believe that a fleet of airships with fully developed radar could be operational within 2 years. There's now a real prospect that they can make a decisive contribution to the worldwide battle against landmines.
Mineseeker is not the panacea for landmines. It's a tool. It's something that can be used. We're not going to replace a manual deminer with a stick in the ground, but what we hope to do is give him a smaller area to search. Landmines are a problem that we can solve. They're not going to go away, but I think if we work together and if we find resource, it is a thing, unlike almost anything else, that can be solved in our lifetimes. And if we get together, we can do it.